The Sacramento Board of Supervisors declared May 22nd as Adverse Childhood Experiences and Resilience Awareness Day to emphasize the importance of understanding, preventing, and treating childhood trauma. Adopting a trauma-informed approach to juvenile justice policy and practice can help lead to reduced recidivism, reduced criminal delinquency acts, fewer police and justice system contacts, greater adherence to probation supervision and diversion conditions, improved school performance and attendance, and improved relationships with families and peers. The Sacramento County Probation Department understands this and has embraced the essential elements of a trauma-informed juvenile justice system. Our Juvenile Operation Divisions, the Detention Facility, Juvenile Court, Juvenile Placement, and Juvenile Field Services has focused their efforts on becoming a trauma-informed agency. Our mission as a department is to support positive change. Understanding and acknowledging the prevalent and adverse effects trauma has on our youth, families, and community is the first step in healing. Through the supportive leadership with each division, we have focused on policy change and approach in working with youth, identification and screening of youth who have been traumatized, clinical assessment and intervention, staff education, youth and family teaming, cross-systems collaboration, effective diversion practices, secondary trauma management, and trauma-informed approaches to address disparities and diversity.
Housing Unit 10 is a trauma-informed unit inside the Youth Detention Facility. Upon intake, the youth are screened using the Child and Adolescent Screening Form. Based on the data collected, 97.8% of the youth reported experiencing at least one traumatic event. Some of the traumatic events in the lives of the youth involved in the juvenile justice system are physical and emotional or sexual abuse, community violence and victimization, abandonment and neglect, domestic violence, traumatic loss, serious accident, medical trauma, injury, or illness. Upon entry to the Youth Detention Facility between January 2017 and January 2019, there were 1,512 child and adolescent trauma screening forms given, 76.3% males, 23.7% females. The average of traumatic events reported were 3.17 different events. However, if we were to exclude those who did not report any events, the average goes up to 4.68. Overall, girls reported more re-experiencing symptoms, more avoidance symptoms, more negative cognition symptoms, and more hyperarousal symptoms. So this is the Unit 10 coping box. This is utilized when residents may be returned from court, they have a bad phone call, they have some type of distress that is pushing them to that point of like a breakdown basically. And it can be stress, it can be anger, because everybody shows it in different ways. So with this, we're able to utilize our coping box we pretty much use like a 10-15 minute de-escalation time for the girls based off of their needs. And we have things such as a weighted blanket. This kind of gives them the sensation of like a hug or being safe is where a lot of the girls describe how they feel with this. The overall goal of having a trauma-informed female unit inside the Youth Detention Facility is to use the awareness and understanding of trauma to guide the programs, services, policies, and procedures for the youth in care and the staff members that serve them.
The multisensory de-escalation room is an opportunity to work directly with juveniles and to engage with them in a way that helps alleviate anxiety, fear, and frustration that they may be having. And in doing so, we're able to reduce room confinement and reduce incidents inside of our juvenile hall.
Sensory rooms and de-escalation rooms are used in some adult psychiatric facilities. I know sensory rooms are used in some schools, but this is the first of its kind in a juvenile detention facility. A lot of our kids that come to us have a lot of trauma, and so they're much more reactive, where they have a heightened amygdala, so they're kind of always on constant watch of like what's coming next.
They're triggered, so they're using the part of the brain that's primarily responsible for our survival responses. So, big physical fight, flight, freeze sorts of things. So bringing them in, allowing them to discharge that energy in a safe environment, and then helping them acknowledge and work through that, bringing them around to the part of the brain that's more based on the cognitive decisions, helping them to move towards the frontal lobe, where they're better able to then reason and discuss what happened, how did we get here, and then how do we help keep them from getting to that point in the future.
So growing up, I never knew how to express myself. I never knew how to talk about what's been going on in my life.
And here it's great because you actually have someone listening and actually understanding what's going on.
It helps me take out my anger and stuff. I just jump on the bean bags or just relieve stress,
I'm learning patience. I'm learning how to deal with people. I'm learning how to react differently to a situation.
The colors, the objects are designed to engage and stimulate the senses. What we know is that when you engage multiple senses, the learning is generally increased.
You're blending brain science, you're blending sensory integration and child development.
Like, I'll understand why I was mad, what I can do to fix it, make sure next time it doesn't happen.
Success means that a resident is able to get back to the unit and function. Just the fact that they can go back to the unit and program is a huge difference.
There's a lot of factors that go into a facility. The culture change, the hiring practices that we have here in conjunction with this room have just made tremendous efforts. Since its implementation, there's been nearly 40% reduction in room confinement usage, as well as use of force incidents in the facility.
And then we've also seen just a positive increase in engagement between staff and our residents.
Punishment alone does not work. Yeah, we can give them that ultimate timeout by incarcerating them, but what have they learned? What is going to be different when they leave the facility? What skills have you given them so that when they do leave the facility, because most of these kids are going back into our community, what can we do to better their circumstances when they leave so that they don't reoffend, there's not further victimization that return them to facilities?
I think we're going to see emulation of this idea throughout both the state and the country, because this provides an opportunity for us to work with kids, to bring down that anxiety level, to prevent incidents and prevent acting out. We're really seeing the positive impacts of this program throughout our juvenile institution.
Many of the youth that come before the Juvenile Delinquency Court have been exposed to trauma in the form of neglect, abuse, exploitation, and domestic violence. The Probation Department is making strides to address trauma exposure and how it correlates to adolescent brain development. All juvenile court writers have received trauma training from UC Davis Cares. Juvenile court writers utilize their trauma training to make assessments and recommendations in 241.1 Welfare and Institutions Code, otherwise known as WIC, joint assessments, 707A1 transfer hearing reports, and all dispositional reports. Trauma is assessed when determining whether a youth should be made a dependent child of the court or made a delinquent child of the juvenile court, as youth in the foster care system are more likely to have been exposed to trauma. The Child Protective Services sections of the 241.1 joint assessments have been expanded to alert the court to possible trauma exposure. Probation officers collaborate with social workers in an effort to keep lower risk clients out of the delinquency system. The Violent Offender Unit, which processes the 707A1 transfer hearing reports, assess trauma and take it into consideration when probation administration determines whether a youth's delinquent proceeding should be heard before the Juvenile Delinquency Court or should be transferred to a court of criminal jurisdiction, otherwise known as adult versus juvenile.
The Sacramento County Juvenile Court has a dedicated courtroom for commercially sexually exploited children, otherwise known as CSEC. Weekly staff meetings are held as a collaborative effort to maintain consistency in the youth's life and to assist with determining the youth's therapeutic treatment needs, as well as to make decisions for dispositional outcomes. There are dedicated court and field officers assigned to the specific caseload, who work collaboratively in attempts to maintain the youth's safety, well-being, and to ensure the youth completes their court-ordered terms and conditions of probation. Overall, we have learned that trauma impacts everyone's health, well-being, and decision-making skills. The hope is, with continued support, youth have a better chance of overcoming the obstacles they believe are in their way, of becoming happy, healthy, resilient, and successful adults.
Sacramento County Probation Placement Services utilizes a trauma-informed care and strength-based approach with the youth and families we serve. In 2017, the long-needed comprehensive reform efforts of the foster care system, also known as Continuum of Care Reform, or CCR, began to take effect. CCR is built on the foundation that youth can thrive in loving, resourced, and supportive home-based settings. The vast majority of the youth in placement have endured past trauma in their life. Our officers are mindful of the additional trauma they endure when the court orders their removal from their parent or legal guardian and placement into a foster care setting. CCR seeks to transform the broken system to a trauma-informed, family-based model prioritizing youth voice and choice throughout the process. In January of 2018, Placement Services expanded their procedure to incorporate the facilitation of child and family team meetings, CFTs. CFTs drive all placement decisions, case planning, and care coordination. The youth and family are embraced as team members. The placement officer convenes the youth, family, and their identified support with a multidisciplinary team such as behavioral health, education services, treatment providers, and engages through a team-based process to identify the strengths and needs of the youth and their family in order to achieve positive outcomes for safety, permanency, and well-being. Incorporating the child and family team meeting in the evaluation and decision-making process gives the youth and family a voice in the decision-making process and strengthens the ability of the placement officer to locate a trauma-informed and culturally relevant short-term residential therapeutic program, otherwise known as a STRTP, foster family agency, or resource family that can meet the complex individual needs of the youth and provide services to reunify the youth with their parent or guardians as quickly as possible.
There is a lot that you will get out of it with the knowledge and the feeling that you are, lending a hand to somebody who a lot of people may not otherwise reach out to. So there's definitely satisfaction that comes from that, and a lot of gratification that comes from making a connection with someone who you also might normally never connect with. I think that's a wonderful reason to do it.
Teaming and cross-systems collaboration is essential and drives care coordination, services, and support throughout the youth and families' involvement with placement services. Child and family team meetings are convened by the placement officers as often as needed to stabilize the youth, address triggers and traumas, make necessary updates to their case plans, and to assist with early reentry development and transitional planning for reunification with their family. Consistent collaboration and coordination between placement officers and probation's Ready Go community reentry team has been instrumental in the success of providing probation placement youth with transition support and services. Through our trauma-informed care approach, teaming, and cross-systems collaboration, youth and families are provided treatment, resources, services, and support that impact lasting behavioral changes in the youth we serve. Placement officers have completed extensive training in trauma-informed care, child and family team meetings, compliance with CCR's policy changes, and cross-systems training. Our foster parent recruitment and retention officers work diligently to bring awareness of the need for resource families for probation youth and dispel myths and address concerns about probation youth throughout research and collaboration with the community and faith-based organizations to recruit resource families.
Over the last several years, our Juvenile Field Division has worked relentlessly to change a culture of what is wrong with you to what has happened to you when working with youth under our supervision. Being trauma-informed changes the way that we communicate, the way that we plan, and the way that we engage with our youth.
The restructuring of our division has allowed for more targeted case management, lowering officer caseloads, earlier clinical assessment and trauma screening, expanding partnerships with community-based providers, and focusing on the family. While we're responsible for ensuring compliance with court orders and holding youth accountable by operation of law, we also understand that behavior change takes time and trauma compounds this. Through our case management efforts, we look for behavior causation, triggering factors, and treatment options.
One of the pillars of our work is building relationships with the youth, empowering and teaming with the youth and families instead of isolating them. We want their voice and choice to be heard throughout the process. We're another supportive adult in their life, working to create a safe environment and promote their recovery. We rely heavily on cross-systems collaboration and partnership with our community-based providers, referring our youth to probation-supported community-based interventions such as multisystemic therapy, functional family therapy, wraparound, trauma-focused CBT, seeking safety, and other cognitive interventions. We also participate in many grassroots efforts such as the Black Child Legacy Campaign, where we can bring services into the neighborhoods we serve. Mentors and youth and family advocates play an important role in our case management approach. Staff education and training continue to be a key strategy to achieve our goal of being trauma-informed. As part of our division training plan, officers are trained in trauma-informed care, ACEs, child and family teaming, motivational interviewing, crisis response, cultural awareness, LGBTQI, and adolescent brain development.
Abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction lend to a youth's involvement in problem behavior. Our early intervention services work to reduce stressors and support the youth and family in dealing with past traumas, assisting in reducing the entry of youth into the child welfare and juvenile justice system, keeping families together, and ultimately reducing recidivism.
Officer Tovar took a pretty active role in my probation. She actually helped introduce me and my mom to Wraparound. It was a program to help, kids on probation in pretty terrible situations like mine.
The first time that I encountered Kenny was already in crisis. We had made a home visit to his home where we met his mother, who was terminally ill. She was bound to the living room couch. She couldn't get up. Kenny was her caregiver, and he kind of provided the parent role in the home. So when we came in, we got started right away with resources to help him.
Over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to engage the youth we serve and affect their lives in numerous ways. My approach as an officer working through a trauma-informed lens has led to better outcomes, more collaboration with treatment team professionals, and a reduction in recidivism. As an officer in the Juvenile Justice Diversion Treatment Program, where all youth have a mental health diagnosis, I encourage self-advocacy with behavior and medication, collaborate on treatment team plans, and individualized education plans. This assignment has allowed me to grow and see firsthand the power positive law enforcement contact has on youth and allows officers to become an integral part of the communities in which they serve.
Our officers are impacted in their line of work. Therefore, prevention and management of secondary traumatic stress is crucial. Recognition of the need and understanding the impact is the first step in supporting our workforce safety, effectiveness, and resilience. Our approach as an agency includes promoting a supportive environment and modeled at all levels of our organization. For example, debriefing, team one-on-ones, promoting self-care, employee assistance program, peer support, Randy and Mata Foundation, and chaplaincy partnership. Our Juvenile Court Division also initiated a mindfulness program which addresses nutrition, exercise, and officers' overall self-care. This program will be enhanced by a recent grant obtained by the Juvenile Court Division. In order to further educate our community and department, Juvenile Operations has partnered with our Child Welfare Department in leading the implementation of a Health Net grant focused on developing a trauma-informed training to benefit our community. We have partnered with experts in the development and sustainable planning of a curriculum to be dispersed countywide. Our goal is to become a trauma-informed community, one sector at a time. Our Juvenile Operations is dedicated to continuing our efforts in becoming trauma-informed and is committed to building trauma awareness in our community and with our system partners.